I'm just a guy here that's putting the pieces together and that's trying to do the next right thing and facing adversity, facing some challenges, facing that adversity and just going, okay, you know what we're going to do? We have no debt, we're going to have treasury, and we'll wait. And then when it's appropriate, we'll make the moves and we'll be aggressive, but it'll be a disciplined aggression. I think we're going to go a lot further, and I want to see how far we can go.
This is Little by Little with Andy Schectman.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Little by Little. I am very, very stoked to have my good buddy, Shawn Khunkhun, the CEO of Dolly Varden Silver. Shawn, thanks for coming by, brother. How you doing?
Andy, I'm proud to call you a friend. I'm doing really good, man.
Likewise, my man. Likewise. I couldn't echo those words anymore. And it's very cool to have you on today. So let's just jump right into it, brother. I'm going to ask you a question that I already know because you told me about it, but I think people need to understand who you are and what you're all about. To me, the role of being a CEO of a mining company is huge, and I think people need to know who you are and what you're all about before we even go any further. So walk me through your professional journey, maybe some of the defining moments, pivotal decisions that led you on your path to being the CEO of Dolly Varden Silver.
Okay, so it all started because I needed a job, and I was a 22-year-old kid. I came to work in a role that was defined as investor relations. So I came to work for what was essentially, Andy, a startup gold company. And this little gold miner in the middle of Canada was run by a geologist, a rock hunter. And this rock hunter had worked his way up. He worked for some big mining companies, and he really believed in a project in the middle of Canada. And it was at a time where the gold price was like around $300, maybe $350 an ounce. This would it be about 21 years ago. So, look, Andy, I didn't know what I was doing. And all I knew was there was something about this guy. But more importantly, there was something about the way people responded to this guy. I was in Winnipeg, Manitoba in November 2004. I went to my first mining conference.
And you were freezing your ass off, by the way, I'm assuming.
It wasn't that bad. What was interesting was, this is in Celsius, but Winnipeg and Vancouver's the most moderate city in Canada for climate. They're the same temperature in November. So it was about a comfortable 12 degrees.
Right on.
You'd be shivering. Florida, Andy, would be shivering.
But I'm from Minnesota originally, so Winnipeg was Minnesota to me.
Okay, so I go to this conference, and I see the way these businessmen in Winnipeg are looking at this geologist. And Andy, I didn't understand it, but I just thought, I need to follow that guy. And I did. And for the next 6.5 years, I followed that guy all over the world. And we ended up raising a whole heap of money, something in the magnitude of about $500 million. And $500 million 21 years ago was worth a lot more than $500 million is today. So we ended up creating $1.5 billion gold mining company, and our share price went from 7 cents to $5.
Wow.
And what I got to learn in that 6.5 years was, number one, how to be a good man. Like I watched this CEO who rolled up his sleeves and was the hardest working guy on the team. He was the kind of guy that you want to have a beer with, the kind of guy that you trusted to tell a secret. He was just a good dude. And he was just inspiring. And you know what the best part about him was, Andy?
What's that?
There was no closed doors. It was like, kid, come here, come into this meeting. I'm like, oh, really? And he's like, just listen. And I got to absorb all these conversations, how to negotiate contracts, how to evaluate opportunities, how to lead and inspire teams. And it was it was such a wonderful time. Now, what made it even more special was the price of gold was moving from 3 to 4 to 500 up to 1900. And it was just a very, very special time in my life. So that was a defining experience. And I worked extremely hard. And from there, I caught the bug. I just caught this bug. And I don't know if you want to pause there or if you want me to continue.
No, that's okay. I mean, I think the one thing that I take away is that you were blessed to have a mentor. And that's something I believe in very strongly. I try to pay that forward. I too was blessed with having a mentor that helped me so much, and I try and pay it forward. I'm assuming you do too. There's nothing better than learning, being baptized by fire, and learning from someone who has achieved success and wants to take you along for the ride. To me, that says a lot about you. Not only that you understood inherently right away that this was someone you need to learn from, but that you were someone who inspired enough confidence and trust in this gentleman. The fact that that gentleman recognized something special in you and you recognize something special in him says a lot about you to me. I hope it says a lot about you to people watching this show as well. My friend, and I guess you could call him one of my mentors, Rick Rule, always talks about serially successful mining executives. And I think that is something that obviously you understood and has been passed on to you. So that's very cool. And I appreciate your candor and sharing that. So in regards to Dolly Varden, what are Dolly Varden's priorities and their goals? Let's just do it on a short-term basis coming for the upcoming year. Do you look that short in front of you? Are you looking for 2025 and your goals and things that you want to achieve?
100%. It was actually through that gold mining experience, though, that inspired me to build a silver mining company. So I watched silver outperform gold in 2010. And despite me working really hard and having a lot of things go right, including having the right mentors and the right project, it was more advantageous for me financially to be in silver for 1/10 the time than it was building a gold mining company. So Dolly Varden is the manifestation of a career, a lesson, an idea, history, and what it is today, Andy, is it's one of the highest grade silver and gold projects in a very, very safe jurisdiction. So when we look ahead at 2025, we've got this project that was the richest silver mine in the British Empire, Canada's third largest silver mine. We have a very large endowment of silver, about just under 150 million ounces silver equivalent, half silver, half gold. When I look ahead at 2025, first of all, we've got dozens of drill results. And like the way we've grown our business is, this is a mineral inventory story. Like this is a company that grows its value through identifying more ounces in the ground, through drilling and through acquisitions. And so we've got drill results. Our scientists have went out and they've looked at where we've got silver on the property, where silver was mined, and they're trying to step out and expand and extend that mineralization. So we've got a lot of drill results to report. And if we can show more discoveries, and Andy, the last 3 years, these have been the best drill results in, I would say, the Golden Triangle 100%, which is one of the richest areas in the world, Northwest BC, Canada, for precious metals. But I would argue, easily top 5, top 10 drill results globally for silver and gold.
Wow. Congratulations.
It's a great project. It's a great area. And I think we're just scratching the surface. But so for me, we've got this company with an incredible mineral resource. We're growing it. We're expanding it through drilling. So 2025, like if it's not broken, don't fix it. We're going to keep that program of growing that mineral inventory. So I've got a lot of goals for 2025. Get out these drill results, get out and drill more. But I'm challenging myself because there's something that's happening in the industry right now, Andy. And that is there's a disparity between where the metal prices are and where the stocks are. There's a huge
Yeah,
disparity.
I've noticed that too. It's crazy. Undervaluation is, I think, the hallmark of the mining industry right now.
And so I've been blessed that I've got these shareholders, like Hecla, which is a silver miner, like Eric Sprott, like big institutional investors. I've got these incredible investors that believe in the project. They believe in my team, and they've given us capital. So we've got about 34 million in the bank. We've got this big mineral inventory. I'm trying to challenge myself and the team to say, guys, look, I love what we're doing. I love that we're growing our project organically. I think we've got a lot more silver and gold to find here. But in this moment where you've got the price of other companies down here and you've got the metal price up here and starting to break out, is it more cost effective to acquire than it is to keep exploring and discovering? So we've evaluated a number of opportunities, and I really think I'm in a moment right now where I have an opportunity to build one of the greats. And I look at a company like Hecla. Andy, how many businesses do you know that have been around for 135 years?
Not many. I've been around for 35 years, and I think that's a big achievement. 135, I'd say that that's about as impressive as it gets. I think you're dealing with a cornerstone of the industry.
So one thing I learned from all these great mentors in my past was I don't need to recreate the wheel, right? There's a path that's been laid down ahead of me by some incredible people and companies in the past. I have an opportunity to try to build a Hecla. And that's what I want to do, because that is a generational opportunity, and it's something that could be here 100 years from now. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build a business. And I don't know, in a world where things are changing as fast as they are with technology, and, the 10 biggest companies today didn't even exist 30 years ago. I feel confident that if I put my time, my energy, and my heart into this project, it will be here in 100 years. And so I just think that's a very unique thing in the world, where what other business could say that?
Not many. And I was going to ask you a different question. Well, I'll ask it after I ask you this next question because of where you've taken this. And I think I know the answer from all the time I've spent around Rick Rule, who's done a lot for me. And I've learned a lot about the mining industry and the people who run it through him. And so I'm going to skip ahead to a question, then come back to the other. And I want you to take off your humble shoes and be honest with me, because I think this is what I really want to get across to people. As I said, Rick always talked about the people at his shows were serially successful. Ironically, I see you there. Not ironically, I see you at Rick's show every year. And that's when you and I talked last about some of these things. But if Dolly Varden achieves its ultimate vision of success, now take off your humble shoes, what part of that journey, and just listening to you explain this vision and your idea that you've formulated through 20 plus years of being, on the ground, and going from, the very, very humble beginning to running a very large company, what part of that success and that journey would you attribute directly to your role as being CEO? I think it's important, Shawn, because I think people need to understand who's driving the ship.
Yeah. So listen,
and I think, so be honest.
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit of a story here. So 5 years ago, it'll be 5 years in February, Dolly Varden was struggling. It was trading at half the value of its peers. And why I decided to step in and go on as CEO on February 18th, 2020 was because I saw this project, and I saw this project, and my thinking was, look, first of all, it's got an opportunity to double in value. All the peers are trading here. It just, nobody knows about it, and nobody is working it. And, businesses need capital. And so I think it was good for me to identify the company. That was, that was important. And I always say, Andy, what am I here to do? I'm here to make investors money. And the easiest way to make somebody money is buying something right. So we came in and we bought Dolly right. It was undervalued. The second thing we did is we put the best people around it. And when I say the best people, I mean the best people for this project. The scientists that know the rocks here. The people that have the relationships with the communities here. Okay? And then we went out and we formulated a plan. And, Rick, you talk about Rick Rule. There's another guy that you're going to see at that conference all the time. And he's described as a living legend, Bob Quartermain. Okay, Rick Rule gave Bob Quartermain a few $1 million many, many years ago to start a company called Silver Standard. And the idea was silver was trading at $4. Okay. And the idea was Rick said to Bob, go get projects that are going to work when we're in a $15 price environment. Guys like Rick Rule, he's a visionary. Okay. And so what I was just reacting to, Andy, was the fact that, look, silver was undervalued. And if I thought about Dolly Varden in a $16 price environment, that's what the price of silver was 5 years ago, $16. People would say it's marginally economic. But the vision I had, Andy, was get the right scientists around it who will poke holes around it to see if we can expand and grow it, number one. Number two, there was a project right next door that had a lot of silver and a lot of gold. So I thought, even if the scientists were not successful, because a lot of this is what is endowed, what did Mother Earth, what is endowed on the project. So look, I had a plan. I went out and I shared the vision with people like Eric. I recognized that mining companies every day are depleting their mineral inventory. And they don't want to put the risk into exploration and development. They want to buy something when it's established. Okay? So what I did is I explained my vision to people like Eric Sprott. And Eric is a big believer in silver. Eric told me 3 years ago that he had a belief that silver was on its way to $300 an ounce. I don't know if he's actually increased that target price based on some of the printing and some of the other fundamentals on the demand side, but that's where he thought it was going. So I went to people who were not looking for a trade. We live in this world that is instant gratification. People want to buy a stock and they want it to go up the very next day. And they can't wait, and it's why we have crises. It's why, you had a guy who owned 5 homes on a lot of leverage, which created a housing crash. People over-lever. So my point here is, I said, look, it's going to be hard. It's going to take time, and there's risks. Be honest with people. And what's happened is, we've gone out and we've executed. The scientists have found more silver. They're making discoveries. They've figured out how this mineralization, the dip, the geometry, the plunge, and you know what? It's getting really rich and it's getting really wide as we go incrementally deeper. So we're finding a lot of pure high-grade silver. And then we've done good business deals, Andy. We've bought neighboring projects. Andy, I've raised $122 million with my network in one of the toughest junior markets in ever. Our junior market trades today lower than it traded in the crash of 2008.
That's just unbelievable. You want to talk about good value? I don't know that you could sing a better endorsement to the value found in your industry.
And Andy, I just, I've got a 15-year-old son at home and I've got a 12-year-old daughter that are looking up at me. You talk about paying it forward. Another guy I work with here is a guy named Frank Justra. And like Rick Rule, Frank is one of those guys, serially successful entrepreneur. And one of the things Frank had me do yesterday is he sent me to a prison.
That's what happens when you mess up, John. Don't mess up.
And it was actually a youth detention center. And he had me talk to a room of about a half dozen 18-year-old boys who, Andy, they're good guys. They just made some wrong decisions. And you talk about, Shawn, you know, I'm sure you're paying it forward and doing what you're doing. Listen, I've got all these people that are looking, whether it's the shareholders, whether it's the kids at the YDC, whether it's my son, my daughter, and I'm showing them, look, there's another way here, right? And what I'm trying to do with Dolly is I'm trying to leverage these incredible scientists and these incredible supportive shareholders. Dolly would have never got off the ground if it wasn't for Hecla and Eric Sprott. You know, Andy, I'm just a guy here that's putting the pieces together and that's trying to do the next right thing and facing adversity, you know, facing some challenges, facing my government locking us down, facing people selling silver down to under $12 in March of 2020, facing that adversity and just going, okay, you know what we're going to do? We have no debt, we're going to have treasury, and we'll wait. And then when it's appropriate, we'll make the moves, and we'll be aggressive, but it'll be a disciplined aggression, and we'll go hard when it's time. And that's how we approach business. It's how we approach exploration. And at 43 years old, with 21 years of experience, with the team that I have, with the project that I have, I think we're going to go a lot further. And I want to see how far we can go, because there's a lot of guys in the industry here. They're in their 60s and then in their 70s. I call them the gray hairs and the no hairs. And all due respect to them, because I have a lot of them surrounding me on my board of directors and my advisories and my shareholders, but I'll do the work. I'll come in every day, give me the ball, and I will do the work. And then look, there's a lot of luck that's involved in this business in terms of timing, in terms of what's endowed on the projects. So there's a huge luck factor. There's a great timing factor, but it's surrounding yourself with the best. You know, what do they say, Andy? You know, you're the sum of the 5 people that you associate with and you're close to. And I saw it with you. I see who you surround yourself with. I've had dinner with you and your wife. I've spent time with your business associates. It's the quality of people that you surround yourself with. And that's why your business is going for 30 years without one complaint in 30 years.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that, Shawn. And that's really what I'm trying to get at here, everybody, is see, if I didn't know what you were selling, I would buy your product after listening to what you just had to say. What I was trying to pry out of you is what I've learned in this industry, that you can tell an awful lot about the company by who's running it. And I've learned that from Rick. I think you've learned it along your way too. In fact, I think you learned it before you, right away when you started out in the industry. In investor relations, you understood the importance of the person running the ship and just how integral it really is. And I appreciate your candor. And I wanted you to, say this, even though it's uncomfortable to say, yeah, I'm responsible for a lot of it, because I want people to understand you and what that really represents. And half of your life has been spent in this industry, as it has with mine. Over half my life almost, and well over half my life, and I'd be 70 years old otherwise. I'm dating myself, but this is what I wanted to get across in the mining industry: how important leadership is, and someone as humble as you, as good of a guy as you, but understands surrounding yourself with good people. That's what I've done my whole career, my entire career. I've strived hard to surround myself with the right people, like Rick, like David Morgan, like Doug Casey. Like all of the people who have, like yourself, helped me achieve success. You can't do it all yourself. And so with that being said, if Dolly Varden does achieve its ultimate vision of success, where do you see the company eventually positioning itself? Is it for acquisition by a larger mining company? Or do you see Dolly Varden remaining independent and going into production? And this is the one question that when I asked you about it, it was very interesting, your response. I think people would love to hear what your ultimate goal is, or your ultimate vision for where this goes.
So look, when I took over Dolly 5 years ago, it was a $20 million company. And with silver going to $35, in and around September, we got up to $456 million valuation. So from 20 million to over 400 million. And when I started, my goal was I wanted to crack the top. I wanted to be a top 10 silver equity. Now, there's two ways for me to get there. We can either get acquired by a company that's in the top 10. And what's happened, Andy, is there's 13 companies that are producers. There's 13 publicly traded silver mining producers. In the next 30 days...
And let me just interrupt you for 1 second. Please remember your thought, and I apologize for doing this. I want people to understand this as well. How many gold producers are there?
Well, I'll put it to you in a different way. In North America alone, there are 170 projects that have a minimum of 750,000 ounces of gold. So there are 170 deposits in just North America alone that have 750,000 ounces of gold. Now, there are only 33 silver projects that have a minimum of 25 million ounces.
Is it because it's just that hard to find?
So, look, it's interesting because there is 16, we have been blessed with 16 times more silver on planet Earth than gold. Okay. So silver is more abundant than gold by 16 times. Now, what's interesting about silver, though, is if you want the pure silver mines, they only make up 1 out of every 4 producing opportunities is a pure silver mine. 75% of the silver we get comes as a byproduct. And so a lot of the silver that we get is mixed in with copper mines, with lead zinc mines, with gold mines. It is extremely rare to find a pure silver mine.
Do you agree with our mutual friend Keith Neumeyer, who has told me at least 2 or 3 times personally? In fact, last time he told me this to my face was at Rick's show last July. Do you believe that number has decreased to 7 to 1?
So, it's funny, when you were talking earlier about the people, right? About getting behind the people. The guy that popped into my head was Keith Neumeyer. I'll never forget when I first met Keith Neumeyer. Now, I'd seen him at conferences and at shows, but to actually properly meet him and to have a conversation with him and have a formal meeting, we were talking about something. And what was really interesting to me is all he cared about was he asked me, he goes, will you keep the school buses going? Will you keep the roads paved? When shit hits the fan at 4 a.m. and you get a phone call, will you pick it up? And Keith's just a good dude. And I think what Keith is talking about on the 7 to 1, from my understanding, is, and Keith has got one of the biggest silver mining shows on planet Earth, right, with First Majestic. And I've got just so much respect for him. But what Keith's identified is we are mining. For every 1 ounce of gold we mine 7 ounces of silver. So if you go back thousands of years to the natural setting in the Earth's crust of 16 to 1, that's the ratio. That's what every 16 ounces of silver, 1 ounce of gold, that's the natural. But because we've been producing this stuff for thousands of years, and because gold has held a higher value than silver for much of that time, gold being more precious in value, the gold has all the gold we've ever mined is still with us, whereas the silver has been discarded, a lot of it. And so I think that maybe after all this mining for thousands of years, maybe the mining ratio of 7 to 1 represents the new silver ratio.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at. So let's go back to your question before I so rudely interrupted you. Do you see yourself positioning for acquisition by a larger company, or could you ever, I think that's where ultimately that's the goal of most junior companies, but could you ever surprise yourself and go into and remain independent and go into production?
So, it sounds simple, but it's not, at the end of the day, it's really not about Shawn's vision. right? Shawn's vision is driving the company. But at the end of the day, what I have to ask myself in every decision I make is I have to think of the shareholders, right? Like, because it's essentially with these companies, you got the shareholders here, then you've got the board of directors, and then I'm responsible to report to that board. So I'm working for the board who's responsible to the shareholders. So ultimately, to answer your question, if we got a bid from a larger company and they said, look, we want to buy you, and if it was a good valuation based on what we've identified, if it was a good premium, and we liked their business, we would sell, right? We would sell because I'm here working for the shareholders. It's not about Shawn's dream to build the best silver mining company on planet Earth. It's I have a fiduciary duty to return value to my shareholders. So, Andy, whether we get absorbed by a larger entity or not, we're getting into that top 10 list. Okay, we are going there. And this is a company that's already grown by over 20 times in value. And the shareholders are doing really well. They've all made, they're all up significantly from where they entered, 700% for those who entered on day one. And what's crazy about all these numbers is up until April, we were in a depression in this industry, an absolute depression where it was next to impossible for a silver miner to actually make money. And what silver miners have been forced to do over the last number of decades is in order to survive, they've had to produce other metals. You take a look at some of the biggest and best silver mining companies today. I'll give you one example, Pan American Silver. They've got it's a tremendous company run by a tremendous team, tremendous track record, great company, great assets. They've got a lot of silver inventory. They've got a lot of silver in the ground. But from a production standpoint, they're only producing, their revenue is only generated from about 1/3 of silver. The rest is other metals. So, the biggest and best silver mining companies, I would argue silver is just a byproduct in a lot of these companies. So what I'm trying to do, Andy, is I'm trying to build the purest silver mining company because based on, and you would know all this stuff a lot better from your vantage point than I do, but based on all the demand for the physical silver, based on the fact that 100 years ago, 90% of demand for silver came as jewelry or investment. Today, that's only 45%. 55% is industry saying we need this stuff for a whole host of applications, and that's growing. So as we move to falling productions, guys like Keith Neumeyer and companies like Pan American, they're only producing 800 million ounces a year. That's down from 1.2 billion, right? And so that 800 million ounces is not satisfying that rise. And so for me, if I can, because I don't know what the price of lead and zinc are going to do. I don't know what the price of copper is going to do. But what I do feel based on dwindling mine supply and increased demand, I'm very confident that since coming into Dolly, I've seen the price of silver go up 100%. It's gone from 16 to 32, but I think it's going to double again and again. And I think if I can corner the market on high grade, pure quality silver deposits, I'm going to have a company that is very valuable in the future.
And this is why I want people to understand more about you rather than the projects themselves, because I think it's the vision driving that means everything. At being in the Golden Triangle, obviously your projects are in some of the richest mineralization in the world. Is it typical, or do you typically find copper, lead, and zinc when you in the same area as you find silver?
So just looking at the Golden Triangle, what we see in the Golden Triangle is there's this 20-kilometer area that's the richest 20 kilometers on planet Earth for silver and gold.
That's why it's called the Golden Triangle, correct?
Yeah. And what's really crazy about this area is it's been known for about 130 years. Okay, so the first prospectors, and you go back to the California Gold Rush, the Yukon Gold Rush. This area really kind of came on the map in and around the 1890s. The first 100 years, Andy, they only found 5 million ounces of gold. The last 30, there's been an additional 150 million ounces. Andy, what is going on in the Golden Triangle where 150 million ounces of gold has come across? I mentioned Bob Quartermain. He's a big part of that. He had Pretium, which he started and ended up getting acquired by Newcrest for $3 billion. These are early stage startup companies that are being acquired for billions of dollars in bear markets, in depressed markets. And so what we're seeing in the Golden Triangle is silver and gold have different melting temperatures. Okay. And so what actually intrigued me about Dolly Varden was in the Golden Triangle, home to some of the greatest mines, what starts as a silver mine has morphed into some of the biggest gold finds on planet Earth. And what we're seeing in the Golden Triangle is you got silver, you got lead, zinc, you got gold, and then in the north, you've got copper. So yeah, these are big polymetallic districts, but there are certain zonations. And sometimes you get the silver and the gold, and sometimes you get the copper and the gold. So it is just a smorgasbord of metals. What's unique about Dolly, what makes Dolly very, very, very unique is we've got mines that are 99% silver. Like it's baffling to me. It's a very unique project. And then we just newly acquired and have made some really big discoveries at a silver gold project that's also a very, very large pure gold system. So we've got, and for me, Andy, if I had to pick two metals that I really wanted to get exposure to, it'd be silver and gold. So I celebrate all the gold we're finding, but 50% of our resource, over 50% of it is pure silver.
Yeah, I can see why a company like Hecla wants to partner with you, not only because of you, but because of your project. Let me shift gears just a little bit, just a couple more questions, Shawn. I appreciate your time, buddy. It's great to always sit down and chat with you. AI. And automation, do you see this as replacing aspects of the geological work? And how should young people watching this show, maybe young, inspiring geologists, view this evolution? Are there ways for them to, things that they should be doing or understanding to help them, follow a guy like your footsteps on the heels of the AI technology boom?
Those are really good questions. So on the AI side, what I've seen is, when you have a project like Dolly, Dolly first got into production in 1919. And we've done a really good job of taking all that historical data, digitizing it. Now, what you can do with AI is the AI can go through that data on a weekend. What would take a team of humans 6.5 or 7 years,
oh, geez,
AI can do in a weekend. Now, what's interesting, though, is the reason Dolly has been successful has nothing to do with technology. And it's interesting. I have a wonderful man on the board, Rob McLeod. Rob McLeod is a third-generation miner from the area. And his uncle was inducted into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. His cousin Catherine is the chair of Kinross. Cousin Bruce sold Sabina to B2. They're one of the most prestigious and successful Canadian mining families. And I've got the honor, again, we talked about surround yourself with the best. So Rob is a director and he is a technical advisor to Dolly Varden. And I'm actually, I think I lost my train of thought. No, I'm back on it. So just giving the Rob biography. But no, so Rob came in and he said, Shawn, if you want this to be extremely successful, what you need to do is we need to go do it old school. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, we need to let's bring in the geophysics. Let's bring in the AI. Let's bring in, the geochem, the radiometrics. Let's do all that stuff. But let's get back to paper sections. He goes, the old timers had it right. They had it figured out. Let's pull out those old maps from the 30s, from the 50s, from the 70s. And we brought in a young geologist, Amanda Bennett. And we said, Amanda, this is your job, to go through all that historic data. And it's different when you're dealing with these paper sections and paper maps. And she went through and she poured through it, and I watched her study. And she goes, here's an opening. And that opening was the Wolf deposit. And
what do you mean by an opening? I'm sorry to interrupt again.
So it was an area where there was silver, and nobody had followed up to see if it was expanding and extending beyond where it was known. So she's like, Shawn, the Wolf vein is open here. And now the challenge that we had is there was a blanket, there was a rock cover called the sedimentary cap over that area. So everybody else is like, all this technology, the geophysics, the geochemistry, it doesn't penetrate that rock. But Amanda's like, Shawn, what if that host rock that's hosting all this silver, what if it's sitting below this blanket? What if it's sitting below there? And I said, okay, you know what? She moved from Calgary to Vancouver because I convinced her to come here, to get involved, and we're going to get behind her. We're going to support her ideas. And she goes, Shawn, I've got this idea. I want to drill these holes. And there's a cost that's involved and there's a risk that's involved. But I thought, you know what? We've got to support her. And Andy, she hit it. And the company at the time was worth about 50 million bucks. And the gray hairs and the no hairs said, don't do it. And this young female geologist in a male dominated industry, right, who had the strength and the voice and the support and the budget, and we took the shot, and guess what happened? That was the moment. That was the breakthrough. That was the moment where we went from 50 million to 200 million, and it gave me the confidence to raise more money, to make acquisitions, and to go, let's go. Because what she did by going underneath that cover, it opened up a whole new corridor, and
And again, that says everything about you, recognizing talent. And I don't want to really call it paying forward, but it kind of is. When the gray hairs and the no hairs say, Shawn, you're an idiot, don't do it. You'll waste your money and piss off your shareholders. This is what leadership is about. This is why you will be serially successful, and why you will leave a lasting legacy, and why your team will respect you for doing that kind of stuff. Why I respect you just by hearing that story, and I'd love to meet her one day and talk with her about that. That's amazing, and congratulations on that. I've kept you for 40 plus minutes, so I'll just give you a softball. Maybe it's not a softball, but if you can summarize Dolly's next chapter in one sentence, what would it be?
growth. Just one word. Growth.
Right on. Shawn, how can more people find out about Dolly Varden, find out about you? What's the best way for people who are interested in acquiring some Dolly Varden? And I'll just say, in transparency, I do own Dolly Varden. I owned it long before I had the pleasure of getting to know Shawn on a personal basis. I've owned it for a while because of my relationship with Sprott. What's the best way for people to get the stock, to find out more about it, and to find out more about you as a CEO?
Well, we love talking to investors, whether they're investors of silver or whether they want to know more about silver mining stocks. And it doesn't have to be about Dolly Varden. We love the industry. And so we've got a great website, dollyvardensilver.com. We've got toll-free numbers. We're active on social media. We're here to talk to you, share ideas. I've learned so much more from the people that are calling the phones or emailing in than I could ever teach them. Like it's an incredible thing when you open yourself up and, You learn from people all over the world, and so we love talking to anybody that wants to talk about this stuff. So, and we trade in Canada, we trade under symbol DV, we trade in the US on the OTC, and we're moving towards a big board listing, Andy. So we're going to be open to a much larger audience. We're moving from the OTC, and we'll be moving to a large US listing. And then
congratulations.
We're also we're in the process of making the application, so it's not finalized, but we're making the steps towards it. And that's going to be, when you say what are your goals for 2025, one of my goals is a large board listing, because I really believe that there's something about the US and silver out of any other country in the world. Even though the Chinese 400 years ago probably had more silver above ground than anywhere else in the world, I still think there's something, and to me, I think it has to do with, they tried to take your gold. They said it was illegal to own, right? It was illegal to protect yourself, right?
Here, President Roosevelt, there's the executive order right there.
But Andy, and tell me if I'm wrong, but they didn't do that with silver, did they?
They half-heartedly did it in 34, but no, they really didn't do it.
And I just think there's something about those who are awake, those who get it, those who are, paying attention. They're the 40 to 75-year-olds in the United States. I really think that by Dolly getting on that big board, NYSE listing or NASDAQ, we'll be able to welcome a lot of those people that get it.
Are there any junior mining companies that are listed on Big Board?
There is a company that was a junior. What ends up happening when you do go to the Big Board, though, it has so it's on its way to $1 billion market cap now. But I think when it first listed, it was about 100 million. So there's one that I know of. So from my standpoint, we would be the second real pure silver mining company that's a junior, not a producer, that's going to be listed.
That's very cool. I wish you nothing but the best of success. You deserve it, Shawn. You're one of the good guys in the industry. You're a good guy all the way around, and I really do appreciate you coming on today. I'd like to have you back on again, and that's a given. And we will reach back out to you as things unfold in 2025. But again, I wish you and your team, your family, happy holidays, happy, healthy new year, best of success in the rest of this year and into the next. And Shawn, just thanks for coming on, brother. I look forward to picking up where we left off very, very soon.
I look forward to seeing you in January, Andy.
Oh, that's right. That's right. First beer's on me. And that's, by the way, just a quick plug to the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. One of only two that I go to every year. I go to Rick's show here in July in my backyard in Boca, and all the way across the country, the longest possible flight you could possibly take to your backyard in Vancouver. I look very forward to seeing you there as well, my man. And until then, brother, looking forward to it.
All right. All the best.
Little by Little with Andy Schectman.